pianists, colleagues, and friends. Today we're talking about how to teach the Notturno by Edvard Grieg from his lyric pieces, Op.54, No. 4. This is the second video in a 2-video series about how to teach this piece. In the first video, I talked all about rhythm and polyrhythms. So if you didn't catch that, click the link in the description of this video to get that, because that is really the core starting point on how to play this piece and how to teach this piece. Of course, we all know it, but it sounds like this. I'd like to talk about many other teaching concerns that I have when teaching this piece to an upper intermediate student. As I mentioned before, this is a great prep for clair de lune. So if you have a student who's interested in playing that and they're able to play this, then I would strongly encourage you to assign this and work through all of these concerns, because it will really help them get ready for WC. Therefore, this piece is going to be part of my resource that I'm currently working on called Not Ready Yet, where I'm going to take 10 pieces that are the students' most highly requested, things like clair de lune, pathétique sonata, and I'm going to give you stepping stones to prepare your student to play those advanced works using other intermediate repertoire and exercises and other ideas along those lines. So check out the link in the description of this video where you can get on my list to be the first to know when that resource is ready. So let's actually start at the end and work backwards. I'm going to save my favorite thing about this piece for the end of this video, so make sure you stay tuned to find out what my favorite thing is. The adagio for the last two measures with this giant rolled chord is one of my favorite parts of this, but it's actually quite difficult to teach. The chords are large, and I find that students struggle to play soft, large chords with a beautiful tone sometimes, and I always have opinions about how students roll long chords. So what I advise my students usually is, if they're playing this solid chord at a soft dynamic, to find their fingers on the keys and then just allow all of the arm, shoulder weight to just sink into the bottom of the key and listen for it to happen simultaneously. Find this one and then same thing, sink. And then they have to hold that fermato for a very, very long time, and then just slowly lift the pedal to avoid any kind of clunk or when you lift it. There are a lot of ways you can roll this chord. In this edition, they have the left hand taking the first 4 notes, and then the right hand taking the top 4. That's fine. Sometimes I do what I did first, which is left hand takes the first 2 notes, right hand 4, and then a crossover, which just gives you the option of using a stronger finger than your pinky for that top note, which should sing out. That major third should sing out. You can play a little faster and then get slower for the last note. You can do the whole thing slowly. But a lot of students seem to look at me a little bit like, why are we spending so much time talking about how I'm going to roll this chord? It's just a C major chord. But the truth is, this is a piece that evokes such a beautiful imagination, such a peaceful feeling, that you really want to keep that all the way to the very last moment that you are playing the piano or allowing that last chord to ring out. And most younger students don't consider the endings of their pieces enough for my taste. And I just beg them, I say, I'm a busy mom and piano teacher. Can you please just give me this beautiful moment and finish it so beautifully, because it will make me feel so peaceful. So I do think it's worth talking with your student about exactly how to end this, and even to the point of how they release their hands and release the pedal. Let's work back up to the chromatic spot at 51 to 54. When you get to 53, it really is just these really nice chords that are moving down by half steps. If you literally just move down by half steps, it's very jazzy sounding. There's just a little more interest in that on the top. So you could take just the bottom 3 voices. Make sure students know that's just half steps. It's very visually difficult to read because of the number of accidentals. So breaking that down so that they feel, oh, I don't really even need to think about each note, I'm just playing down a half step. And then the melody on top. Catching the accidental that happens in the alto part that also applies to the soprano. So there just needs to be a little extra care there. It's not technically hard to play, it's just hard to digest the notes. Actual silence. And then we get to the little coda. So as you come into that, it's also moving kind of just down by steps. We've got 49. And then 51. Half step. Sorry, wrong note. I always have to work with students on this. So just know that you will have to work with your student as well. Let's back up and talk about the B section, this più mosso section. It has these lovely rolled chords. Students might try to stretch a little bit too much. Encourage them to have their left forearm and elbow aligning behind their fingers as they play E7. It just opens up even a little bit more. And then we go to the A flat 7. You can certainly just work on kind of this rolling back and forth motion, very swingy, like you're swinging on a swing, and get them to really move their arms. If your student is sitting too close to the piano, they can't do that because their elbow will actually bump into their torso. So sitting back a little bit, allowing this swinging motion. And then the 2 voices in the right hand, you can separate those out into 2 hands. Or even just play one at a time to really hear it. It's again this swinging back and forth motion, almost like you're pivoting on your 3rd finger. So you can leave your 3 on D there and kind of feel this, but you want to avoid reaching really hard out with the pinky this way or reaching really far out with the thumb that way. And then of course putting those together. Hard to play that pianissimo, so you want to encourage your students to get to the bottom of the key bed, but to just have this very relaxed, floating motion across the key so they're not quickly attacking anything and getting a harsh sound. Interestingly, Grieg puts an indication for una corda at measure 21. I actually hadn't thought about how much Grieg indicates una corda, except I was teaching Wedding Day at Trollhagen to one of my students recently. And he has an inordinate number of indications for una corda in that particular piece. I think you can do una corda here, or you can just do a little bit, like partway down the pedal. I would definitely use it at 25, where it's pianissimo, to get a different color on that A flat 7. And then I would take it off at 27. Just a really good accent in your left hand up through there. You could even try that part on all 1 finger to really, get a good arm weight drop into each of those notes to create those bell tones. Pedal needs to be really, really clear here, the damper pedal, and I would definitely advocate for, at the end of that section, when you have the whole 3/8 bar of rest, for it to be actually up and silent. Give our ears a break and give the audience a moment of suspense of what's coming next. And then in 34, you're back. This comfortable place of sounding just like the beginning. So I promised I'd talk about my favorite part. My favorite part is these trills that sound like a Nightingale song. I did look up what a Nightingale sounds like at one point when I was teaching this, and it is almost kind of like a perfect 4th interval going back and forth. So perhaps Grieg had an actual bird in his imagination as he was thinking about measure 15. This is a perfect opportunity for rotation. You start with the bigger rotation of the fourth, which I would say fingers 3 and 1 work really nicely for. And then I would also trill with 1 and 3 because as primates we have this opposable thumb, and when you can use your thumb in a trill, then you're going to get that most opposition and rotation movement possible. And you can just use your 2 on the C sharp to come up to that. When you do the other one at the end of the piece, measure 59 and 60, the trill is on 2 black keys, the A flat and B flat. And so for that one, you probably want to trill with 2 and 3. 1 and 3 is not going to be as comfortable on the black keys. And you need to come to the G natural, so that's going to work better with your thumb. You could trill 2 and 4 to achieve a little bit more rotation. So 2 and 3 or 2 and 4. Regardless, encourage a lot of rotation. Students tend to freak out about trills. I remind them all the time they're just ornaments, they're decoration. They don't have to go really, really fast if you can't play them really, really fast. So, and even the way he's written this, it's a bit of a natural accelerando. You know, you've got the 16th notes, and then the triplets, and then the trill. I do like a little bit of accelerando. Start the trill slower and then speed it up a little bit and then come out of it. I think that makes it very, very musical. And that's kind of what a bird song sounds like. Oftentimes they start slower and then they kind of, get faster and faster. So that Nightingale idea really allows our students to enter into this on some creative, imaginative way, in a way that's very, very easy. You can just think about a forest at night. Or even if you want to get a little bit more mystical, a castle or some far off place at night with one lonely nightingale that's singing, or maybe the 2 different trills or 2 different nightingales singing. Perhaps there's someone outside listening to the birds singing. It does not have to be a complex, complicated, involved story to just allow our students' brains to enter into a more creative space, a more right-brained space, and therefore then connect with this piece on an emotional, imaginative level. That's ultimately going to make for a much more interesting performance for the audience. It's also going to allow the student to memorize this better because we remember things that are more emotional or more story-based on a better level. And it's also just going to allow a student, particularly a teenager who might be playing this, to really connect in a way with something that's just so beautiful and evocative. It will allow them to make that connection with their music in a way that goes beyond, I have to play the right rhythm and get my polyrhythm working right and think about my balance and make sure I play all the accidentals and all that. It's so helpful when we can facilitate our students going beyond that to making music and to communicating something beautiful and meaningful. Again, I hope that helps you with some ideas about how to teach Grieg's Nocturne. If you didn't already enter your email address to be notified when my Not Ready Yet resource is available, then please do so at the link in the description of this video. Check out the editions I listed and other materials there as well. And I wish you all the best in your teaching and playing.